It's time for the February wrap up. This is a terrible way to hold books. Hi guys, nice to meet you if you're new here. Nice to see you if you're not new here. How's it going? I'm Lara. This is Tipsy. She's right here. I have my book journal right here. I have done my February wrap up. I have clips of me doing my wrap up. It's gonna go in my next video though, but let's talk about the stats and then let's get into the books that I read. Here are my monthly stats. This month I read a total of 7 books. I read a total of 2,886 pages, 6 physical books, 1 ebook, no audiobooks, no library books. I bought 6 books this month and my TBR count is sitting at 92. Also, I have a wrapped page. We're doing this wrap up a little different if you haven't already seen it. January's wrap up is a little bit different than February's wrap up. If you like me going over my stats and my wrapped, I can do that. Let's see how it goes. And if you don't like it, just let me know. I won't do it again. I won't do it again. I won't do it again. But my wrapped is, I read 86% romance and 14% fantasy. And I read 86 books. No, I did not read 86 books off my physical TBR. I read 86% from my physical TBR. The first 2 books I read this month are in a series. They are in my Reading Romance for a week for Valentine's Day vlog. The first books are Addicted to You and Ricochet. These are the first 2 books in the Addicted Calloway Sisters series. These books are following 2 addicts, Lily, who's addicted to sex, and Lo, who is addicted to alcohol. They are 2 best friends who pretend to be in a real relationship, so it kind of hides their addictions from everybody around them. They're the only 2 who know of each other's addictions. And they just enable each other. They're in this relationship to enable each other. I mean, Lily goes out and goes to the bar with Lo. Lo is drinking, Lily's in the bathroom. You're going through the books, watching their addiction, seeing their addiction from their eyes and what they're feeling and what they're going through. You're also watching them watch the other person going through their addiction, because even though they know they have an addiction, even though they know they shouldn't be doing this and they should stop, they're watching the other person. Like from Lily's point of view, man, I wish Lo would stop drinking, but I'm not going to stop having sex, so I'm not going to tell him not to drink. Kind of like that. I think it's very insightful to see from their point of view what they're feeling. Lo saying what it feels like when he's not drinking any alcohol, or Lily saying what it feels like when she's not having sex and like her compulsions. I'm excited to get further in the series. Currently right now, it's March 4th, I think. It is March 4th right now, and I am halfway through Addicted for Now, which is the 3rd book in the series. And so far, I'm really liking the series. I know the first 3 books, they're not most people's favorites. It's once you get into the Calloway Sister series, you start liking Lily and Lo. I do like Lily and Lo. I appreciate their point of views. I appreciate seeing what they're going through. I do like them. There are points where you're like, oh, should you be in a relationship? Oh, you're enabling each other. Do you see that you're enabling each other? Also in these books, because they've stayed to themselves so much, they've shut everybody else out, including their families. It is about addiction. So if you don't want to read anything about addiction, don't read these books. It's solely based on their addictions and how they go through life being addicted. Addicted, I gave a 4-star, and Ricochet, I gave a 3.75. But it was still very enjoyable. I definitely recommend these books, but like I said, maybe search your trigger warnings on these. They talk a lot about addiction. And then in that same video, I read The Love Con by Ceresia Glass. This was such a fun romance book. It has cosplay in it. It's a very big element into it, and it was so fun to read about that. This one is about Kenya and her best friend Cameron. Kenya has entered this Cosplay or No Way. It's a little show where they do cosplay and then they move on to the next round, and they are trying to win this big prize. A game show. Kenya is in the final round, and the final round was about iconic duos. Make cosplay of iconic duos. So she has 2 costumes to make, and she decides, Cameron, he's gonna be my partner, but not just my partner, he's going to be my fake boyfriend. Going through this book of watching her make her costumes and having Cameron as her big boyfriend, but you're also watching Cameron, who's so down bad for Kenya. It was such a fun, like, being in Cameron's head and seeing how down bad he is for Kenya was just, the things that he says, the things that he was thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I'm just I'm giddy over their relationship. It was so cute. I loved watching how passionate Kenya was over this cosplay costume, seeing how badly she wanted to win this for herself. On top of her trying to make these cosplays and win the final round, she has parents who don't necessarily agree with what she's doing. They think that she could be making much more money using her degree for something rather than just making silly little costumes and being on this silly little game show. And if she doesn't win, she needs to get a real job and not just play in costumes all day. You're following her in this fake relationship, seeing where that goes. You're following her make these cosplays and being under a lot of pressure, and a lot of eyes are on her. You're also seeing how her family and relationship dynamic is going with her parents not agreeing with what she's doing. She's so determined to prove her parents wrong. This was such a fun read. I absolutely recommend this book. If you want to read a fun romance book, if you want to read a fake relationship, if you want to see fandom and cosplay, which was, I've never, like I said, never read anything about cosplay and fandom before, but I will be picking it up again because this book was just such a fun read. I also gave this book 4 stars. It was so fun. I really did enjoy this. I did enjoy Sarithia Glass's writing as well. Also, I did some immersive reading with this book where I listened to the audiobook at the same time that I was reading it. Their narrator had such emotion into what they were saying. It was great. It was great. The immersive reading was really fun and I recommend. Then I also filmed a finishing series I'm in the middle of as well, and I read 3 books in that video. First book I read in that video was Hopeless by Elsie Silver, and I don't even know what to say because I'm so, oh, the cat's messing with the tripod. I'm so happy that I read this series. The series was so good, but I'm also so sad that I finished the series. The series as a whole is absolutely 6 stars. Hopeless is about Bo. He's the last Eden brother. He's the most mysterious Eden brother. You don't get a lot of him in any of these books. In the books you get some cameos here and there, but not near as much as everybody else. In all of the books, you're watching them on this ranch and they're cowboys or they're bull riders, or he's just different. Bo, like I said, is the most mysterious brother. You don't get a lot about him. He's in the military. He's not a part of the ranch like the rest of them. That's not his passion. It's the military. The Eatons are these town, everybody loves the Eatons in this town. I mean, he's an Eaton, so there's that, but he's also a military prince hero in this town where everybody loves him. But he just feels a bit smothered by everybody. Everybody's checking on him. Everybody's seeing how he's doing. He feels a bit smothered. He knows this girl and she's a bit of an outcast in this town, very opposite than Bo. I mean, Bo, everybody loves Bo. She's just an outcast in this town. They start this bet. Bo thinks it's a great idea. How about we get engaged, but not for real, just fake engagement. So people in this town think that you're about to become an Eaton, and then maybe they'll treat you a little different. When I was reading the other books, I was never super excited for Bo's book. I was more excited for the other characters in the story, but I actually enjoyed this book way more than I thought I was going to. I ate this book up. I read it so fast. I mean, 500 pages. 500 pages, and I read 400 of those pages in one day. All of these books are like that, though. It's not just Hopeless. It's every single... Unfortunately, my camera died. So the camera angle probably moved a little bit. I apologize. We're talking about Hopeless though. And I don't know where I was. Every single book in this series is so incredibly fast-paced. Every single one of these books, I feel like I fly through. I eat them up. I love every single one of them. Every single one of them is amazing, as well as every single female main character is such a badass. They are so driven. They're so amazing. They're so funny. I did like this book a lot more than I thought I was going to, and I gave it a 4.25 star. I was sitting on where I wanted to put it, and I think I settled with a 4.25. Then after that book, I read A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. Also really fun writing. Stephanie Garber has pretty, in my opinion, because I don't read books that are similar to this, I think it's unique writing, but it might not be unique depending on what kind of books you intake. I think it's pretty unique writing. You might not think so depending on what you're reading on a typical basis, but Stephanie Garber, I enjoy her writing. A Curse for True Love is the 3rd book and final book in a Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. When I was recording this book, I was having a hard time talking about this book and explaining what was going on because this is so significant to what is happening in the 2nd book, which is Ballad of Never After. In most books that you're reading that are included in a series, you're reading them and you're following the characters obviously. You're following the characters in each different book, and a different scenario is happening in each book. But usually if you're vlogging or you're watching a vlog or something, you typically can talk a little bit about each book. But this is so significant to what happens at the end of Ballad Never After, and specifically is following what that is, that I simply cannot talk about this book. I simply cannot tell you a single thing that happens in this book other than you're following Evangeline and the events that happen in the second book. You're following those events, and it is a wild ride. It is a wild ride. Once Upon a Broken Heart is about Evangeline, who believes so wholeheartedly in one true love. She believes that you can find your soulmate. She believes in true love, and she finds somebody, but unfortunately that person is marrying another person. Goes to the Prince of Hearts, and she makes this deal with him and then realizes, I shouldn't have done that. He is wicked, he is conniving, he will misconstrue anything that we're saying. He's evil. He's evil, and I shouldn't have done that. And you're following those events in the first book of her deal that she made with the Prince of Hearts and wanting to find her true love. I absolutely love these books. I will say Caraval, it's the first trilogy for Stephanie Garber. He's back. He found me. It's the first trilogy for Stephanie Garber. You read the Caraval series first, and then you go into Once Upon a Broken Heart. You can absolutely read Once Upon a Broken Heart first. That's what I read first. But some people say to read Caraval and then go into Once Upon a Broken Heart. I know that you meet a character in Caraval that you also meet in this book. If you don't want to know who that is, read Caraval first. I think you get the backstory on this character in Caraval, and then you kind of follow them and see them throughout this book or this series. This book got a 4.25 star because I like the second book better, and that was a really great book, but this was still super fun. I really enjoyed it. I just wish there was a little bit more. I wish there was another book because I want to keep following these characters. And then the last and final book that I read in that video was Final Offer by Lauren Asher. This is the third and final book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. In this series, you're following 3 different brothers. Each brother has their own book. They each have a set thing to do. They have something that they have to do in order to get their inheritance from their grandfather from his will. He left them each specific tasks to do. First book, you're following Rowan and following his task, seeing what he has to do to get his inheritance from the will. And the second book, you're following Declan, which is another grumpy brother. Both of those brothers are grumpy men. They're also businessmen. You're following Declan in the second book, seeing what his task is. And then in this book is Cal. He's the opposite of these 2 brothers. So Rowan and Declan are very grumpy men. They are businessmen. They are working for the company. They're getting their inheritance. Cal is like, well, I don't want to be a part of this company. This is not something I like. I'm also a happy-go-lucky golden retriever. Except he's not. In the other 2 books, you're watching him be this happy-go-lucky golden retriever. Everybody loves him. He makes everybody laugh. He makes the situations more tolerable. But in this book, you're seeing a little bit more of Cal. Obviously, you're seeing more in depth of Cal. Cal is not just this golden retriever breaks the ice guy. He is a functioning alcoholic. He feels the need to break the ice for people. Some people gossip about how he's not like his brothers and he's just a trust fund brat, and the cat's rubbing up on him. The camera again, I'm sorry. He's a disappointment to people because he's not following his brother's footsteps like he should be. And his task is very different than the other brother's task. I won't tell you about their task, but I am going to talk about Cal's task. Cal does not have the same kind of task because his grandfather knew him, knew that he wasn't a part of Dreamland, knew that he wasn't this businessy guy. His task is to go back to Lake Wisteria, which is somewhere that they would vacation in the summer, and he needs to fix up and sell their summer house. But the problem with this summer house is somebody lives there. This somebody is Lana. She says that she owns the house, she lives there, and Lana is his ex-girlfriend. You're going through the book watching him. How do I get her to agree to sell this house? They haven't seen each other in 6 years, and all of a sudden he is back to sell her house. It was very fast-paced. I did enjoy this book. It was fun to finally read Cal's book because I was excited for Cal's book, but I had been putting it off for a long time. I'm happy that I finally got to his book because he was my favorite brother. I did, though, end up giving this book a 4 stars. Like I said, I liked it. It was fun. It was a good end to the series. I did finally finish this book, and it's been sitting on my shelf for almost a year. And then finally, I read one more book this month, and I was in a bit of a slump. Anything that I picked up, I would read a little bit of and then I would put it down. I got almost 100 pages into a book, and it wasn't that the book was bad. The book was actually really interesting, really good. I was really enjoying it. But I thought if I kept reading it, I would either really slump out or I would end up hating the book because wrong time. So I put the book down. I'm going to save it for another time because I'm actually really interested in finishing this book. I would pick up a book, read 10 pages. I think I tried to start like 5 books. I was having so much trouble finding a book, and then finally I decided, because I was also trying to record a video, and then finally I decided I'm not going to record a video. I'm going to try and get out of this slump on my own. So I picked up Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. I have had this on my Goodreads and on my Kindle for a while because I love a hockey romance. I know that this book, some people really enjoyed this book. I need to remember for myself that a hockey romance will pull me out of a slump that I'm entering so fast, because I will devour a hockey romance. Let me tell you, it got me out of my little slump because I started reading after I read this book. This story is about Pippa and Jamie. Jamie is this grumpy goalie. He decides maybe I should get an assistant, maybe to help me out. I'm going through some things. I need a little bit of help, so let's hire me an assistant. This assistant shows up at his door, and it is Pippa. Pippa sees him, and she's like, oh my, I used to have the biggest crush on this guy in high school, and he probably doesn't even remember me. She's now a live-in assistant for this grumpy guy that she knew in high school that doesn't remember her. But you're also seeing Jamie remember her. It's a dual POV. You're seeing him think about how he had a crush on her in high school, and then she's like, he doesn't even remember me. It was a really cute story. You're also seeing Pippa, who had her dreams crushed in the music industry, and seeing how she gains back her confidence after that. I gave this book a 3.75 because I feel like at some point the spice was all we were focused on. I will read a spicy book. I am not opposed to a spicy book. I read Ice Planet Barbarians. Do you know what those books are about? But I was reading this book because it was a hockey romance, and I feel like sometimes we were just focused on the spice. Like, there were other things that we could have been talking about. There was stuff with Jamie and his life that we could have focused on a little bit more. There were stuff in Pippa's life. It got to a point where I was skipping the chapters because they were just spicy. And like I said, I don't mind a spice book, but I think because I was already in my slumpy slump that the spice wasn't helping. It could have just been the timing, but I will say that is a very spicy book, as well as Hopeless. I did forget to say that. I said it in my vlog. Hopeless is the spiciest book out of all of the Chestnut Spring series. Keep that in mind. But I will be reading the rest of the series. I did like it. I love a hockey romance. I will eat them up every single time. Those are all the books that I read in February. My average rating for all 7 of these books was a 3.9 star rating. Let me know the books that you read, or let me know your favorite book that you read in February. Other than that, I hopefully will see you next time. Bye! Thanks for watching.